Hello everybody, welcome back after an extended hiatus. Duncan, do you want to explain what happened to the dear viewers?
I just want to say it's so good to hear that theme song again.
Yes, we heard it.
We definitely heard it before we started recording. Do I want to explain what happened?
Yeah, why not?
Well, I think we both just got a bit caught up in uni work.
Exactly.
And
we're busy people.
Various other things. But I finished uni. Have you finished uni?
I have, as of 3 days ago, I think.
Yeah.
Finished uni. So
Did you have a mad party?
I did not, because I'm still in lockdown. And,
yeah.
I also finished uni at 5 AM, which is a very awkward time to finish uni.
That's fair. Have you seen all those like memes of nothing beats the feeling of finishing uni at 12:33 on a Wednesday afternoon? It's just someone like hitting submit and then
hell yeah
celebrating a bit. Those are pretty funny. I celebrated with a game of Monopoly, which I won. So that was
very
good.
Nice.
And then both my flatmates finished last week, and we celebrated by sitting in our living room having some drinks, with just us. So that's what happens when you finish uni during COVID. It's not the most exciting, but you know what? We did it, and we're back. We're back with the Golden Talkies podcast, where we watch films that came out 50 years ago. What's the film this week, Jamie?
This week's film is Walkabout from the year 1971, because that was 50 years ago. We are
a day late on this one, and maybe if this gets uploaded tomorrow, we're 2 days late. So sorry about that. But also, you shouldn't complain, because at least we're back. You guys have been missing us for 3 months, you know.
Yeah, deeply. We've been drowning in your messages, and also we're still going to be like a week late. But actually, before we talk about Walkabout, Duncan,
yes, right,
because this is a podcast where we live up to our promises and we never fail to deliver what we say we'll deliver.
Yeah.
You may remember that the last time we were on, I said that the next film we were going to do was THX1139, or whatever the digits are.
Oh, do you want to do that very quickly now?
And so both me and Duncan watched that film, and we just never found the time to do an episode, so we won't do a full thing, but if we'll both just quickly say what we thought of it. I think.
Give me 1 second to get my notes that I took. Okay, I've found them. They're actually by my side.
That's helpful
for some reason. Okay, THX. What was it called? 19 THX something. Something.
There's a 3 in it.
Right. Let me read my thing. It was a weird one, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's basically my review of it. Is that it's quite weird. It's quite interesting to see George Lucas do something more thematically not relevant, more thematically robust than Star Wars. I wouldn't quite sure if I'd call it good. It's quite a boring watch, frankly.
I was about to say I didn't hate it. My description would be I did not hate it. I assume the version that we watched was on Amazon, wasn't it?
Yes,
I'm assuming
the
CGI. The CGI that was in that was not from 1971. I assume.
Yeah, well, I think in his classic move, his signature combo, George Lucas created the director's cut and then made it impossible to access the original.
Yeah, I believe so. Because there's definitely some funky CGI going on, sort of prequel level stuff. Yeah. Do you want to rate it with her system?
I just want to be clear that the best scene in it was the one where there's a machine that jacks you off, and I thought that's George Lucas. I've got that written down. No other author, no other director.
Machine to jack you off? Question mark. I've got written in my notes.
It's important. I don't really remember anything else about the film other than that and the cops with the big extending batons.
Oh, I don't really remember.
I dare say.
Oh, sex is banned. Is that right? So that's why there's machines to jack you off.
Yeah. Well, that's what he does. That's against the world order, right?
I think so.
Hippy dippy. Very George.
Everyone has to take drugs to perform properly, and he doesn't take them, so he messes up his job. And then he ends up in that white void thing with a bunch of people. God, it was a weird one, but not awful. What are you going to rate it?
Not awful. I was going to rate it a watch if it's on, in my usual non-committal way.
I might do the same.
Cool.
I don't think it's a stream it. It's weird. I guess if you want to see George Lucas just go ham.
I think that's good from that perspective, and it's very quintessentially like 70s sci-fi. Like very, very worried about corporatism, as it were.
Yes.
And, you know, very loving of sex as a method of freedom, if you know what I mean. Those ideas are very strong in it.
That's true.
It wouldn't have been made in another era. That's what I'm trying to say.
Right. So you may hear me rustling papers now. I've just found in the same pile of paper that was in. I found my notes on the readings I had to do for Walkabout, because I actually studied Walkabout as part of my course.
Yes. So I'm expecting you to have proper insight compared to our usual slack.
Well, I copy and pasted my weekly submission that I had to do, my 250 word weekly submission, into my notes here, so I might break out some of that deep analysis.
Cool.
Although it was quite a weird week on the course, because there were 3 films that we could watch, but the lecturer didn't actually tell us which one to watch. And then he said that he'd like messed up and one of them wasn't available in the country, so he'd like added another one, but then he also accidentally added another one or something like that. So it was a bit confusing. But I did watch this one, and I do have some notes on it. But as I told Jamie, to his surprise before we started, I've not rewatched this for this episode.
Yeah, disgraceful, genuinely.
This may be, my analysis might be similar to my THX analysis there, where it's pretty vague, and Jamie might have to lead the way, but probably not. I think I remember most of it.
Well, with your gift for analysis and my gift for having actually watched the film within the last week, I'm sure we can make an unstoppable
I'm sure
team.
we can. So this film came out... But firstly,
historical context.
I was about to say, so this film came out on the 16th of May at the Cannes Film Festival, so I guess it kind of didn't come out on the 16th of May. We're still on the same days, aren't we? Like the 16th is a Sunday and stuff. I guess that won't change until a leap year. So that's pretty cool.
Maybe it won't even then. I don't know if that's just how time works.
We did try and work it out once, didn't we? And then we...
Yeah, and then we realised that's actually quite boring. So we stopped.
I mean, is 50... No, I'm not even going to say anything, because I'll just seem like an idiot. So Walkabout, I actually don't have a lot of historical context. I don't know if you do. I
have a bit.
But okay, Walkabout, actually, I say I don't have much. I've got pretty much none. The website that I look at, takemeback.to, not sponsors yet. Maybe if this revival that we're doing breaks big, we might get a sponsorship. JK. But this film was on that as one of the films that was out at the time. So that's always interesting, because quite often they're not. So that was cool. And there were no new video games to report, Jamie.
Wow.
It was still, because obviously it was partway through the last season. I've decided that this is the next season of Golden Talkies, just because we had such a long break. Although it's not really, because it's the same thing. Last season, midway through last season, they added the video games section to takemeback.to.
Yes, quite strangely, because this is still before Pong.
Yes, exactly. So it was Star Trek and the Oregon Trail and something else, and those are still the games that are there. So, in today's world, in 5 months or whatever since they added video games, you would expect a lot of new ones, but no new ones.
Fair.
And that is my historical context. What's yours?
Right. So on the 12th of May 1971, Mick Jagger, at 27, wedded actress and model Bianca Perez Mora Makina. She was 31, 4 years older than him, in Saint-Tropez. Do you want to guess how long their marriage lasted?
21 days.
No, they divorced in 1978 because Mick Jagger was doing adultery a lot.
Oh, so did I just do when you just predict something completely wrong?
Yeah. It was disgraceful.
And then you kind of lose.
Yeah.
Talking about Mick Jagger, I will come back to the context. Mick Jagger. Wait, am I getting this right? Give me 1 second. Let me just before I say anything silly here.
Mick Jagger.
Yes. Okay. Mick Jagger was in Performance, which we watched last season.
I could have called it that.
And Nicolas Roeg directed Performance, and he also directed this film.
Oh, I didn't know he directed both.
Yes.
That's very. Wait, because this is a second film, isn't it? I think I read that.
I believe so. Yeah, I think it's his second film.
Well, that's nice. We're sort of following his career.
Exactly.
This is much better than Performance. Not to give away my opinion.
Oh, Jamie, don't
give
it away like that. Yeah, I think this was his second film. He also made The Man Who Fell to Earth, which we mentioned when we watched Performance. Still not seen it, but I guess we'll watch that in 2026. So that'll be something to look forward to. Anyway, that was just a little aside. Back to your historical context.
Okay, on the 14th of May, a director that we have studied one film of was born. Can you guess? Yeah, can you guess who? Given that we've done maybe 2 modern films total.
Oh, I see what you mean. Right, what you meant. Okay. Well, we watched Out of Towners remake, but I don't know who directed that. I can't remember.
Yeah.
What modern films have you done? Are you going to have to tell me? Wait.
Okay.
Tell me.
Clint Eastwood is my hint.
I'm lost.
All right. Sofia Coppola was born on the 14th of May.
Oh, we watched The Beguiled, of course. Yeah.
The Beguiled, yes.
Interesting. Okay.
And then on the 16th, Bulgaria adopted its constitution. And then there was also scattered IRA violence throughout the week, as is tradition.
Classic.
So done. You're now all context up.
Yeah. So this film, Walkabout. I guess there's some historical context around it as well in terms of Aboriginal showings and stuff. This was one of the first sort of representations of sort of non-racist representations of Aboriginal.
Yeah, I was about to say our last Aboriginal character on the podcast was what's his face
in
from the games, which both you and I thought was alarmingly racist, even by the standards of the films we've done.
Exactly. So this is an interesting one, and some people have said that it is racist, but I think overall it's a pretty good representation.
I think it's okay for the time. I think there's definitely bits that you could question about the representation. Right,
do you want to do a plot summary, or should we start with who's in it and stuff? I think let's do the plot summary first.
Yeah. So this film opens in Australia. It's got a nice sequence where there's lots of shots of different aspects of what should I say? Built up Australia, colonized Australia. If I want to be super politically fiery, or civilized Australia. If I want to be racist.
Yeah. I'm not sure whether it's civilized. I don't know. Urban.
Yeah, urban Australia is, I guess, the most neutral way. But yeah, so you get loads of shots of that, creating a sort of... It's a strange rhythm to them, so there's a sort of unease going throughout it. And then we get to a girl who's in her teens. The actress who plays her is 17. I don't know how old she's supposed to be. And her little brother, who's about 6 or so, and their father, and they're all out for a picnic in sort of the middle of the outback for whatever reason, and the brother's playing with planes, and the girl's sort of setting aside the picnic lunch on the blanket and all that. And then suddenly, without any real warning, the father decides to try and shoot them.
Yeah.
There's no sort of build-up going to it. We don't really get an explanation, which I like. It just sort of happens, and it's quite scary for them.
And the boy thinks it's a game, and he starts firing.
The boy thinks it's a game because he's playing with his water pistol, and the girl has to tackle him and drag him away. So the father then sets the car on fire and shoots himself in the head, and that's the last we see of him. Yep. And so the girl and the boy are sort of wandering through the outback, trying to find a way back to safety, to what they know, and they're quite bad at it.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay.
I could hear you the whole time.
You cut out a lot. Right. Well, you seem to be back now. Let me write down the time for that, and I'll fix that in post. About
Beautiful.
Minutes. Right. We seem to be back. Continue with your.
Yeah. What was the last thing I said?
I have no idea.
It'll be in the recording.
But if you were talking, then I can just we'll just keep all this in. It'll be fine.
So yeah, that's really great.
The people love it.
Authenticity. That's our trademark.
Yeah.
But yeah, the one that do this outback, they're very bad at it. They don't really have any survival skills, and they're running out of food. And they sort of settle by. I don't think it would be an oasis in the outback. I don't really know the terminology, but at least a tree with water around it.
Probably an oasis,
and they're able to settle there for a little bit. I feel like oasis is specific to Africa, but I might be wrong.
I think it's just in a desert.
Yeah, I don't know. But yeah, but eventually the water dries up and the fruit rots, as it were. But then an Aborigine boy comes along, and he can't talk to them because he doesn't speak their language and they don't speak his language. So they aren't really able to communicate, and the girl's bad at communicating with him. She can't really do anything other than sort of speak English at him increasingly slowly.
We are English, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
She says several times.
And she says, "What can you get us water to drink? I can't make this any simpler." As he sort of just looks at her.
Yeah.
But the boy is a bit more. The young English boy is a bit more, imaginative, and he sort of gestures, and the Aborigine boy is able to understand him.
Yeah.
And he shows them how to sort of get water from the ground, a sort of spigot thing, which I'm assuming is the traditional way of getting it.
Is a spigot not the thing you put in a tree?
It is, but a spigot that's horizontal rather than vertical. A spigot in the ground.
A floor spigot.
Yeah, it's a floor spigot. I know the terminology.
Okay.
Unless you know better terminology, then I don't see why you're challenging me.
No, I don't.
So you fucking come to my house and you challenge me on spigot knowledge, and you don't even have anything to back it up.
So I've looked up spigot. I've looked up spigot, and all I'm getting is the Minecraft plugin.
Yeah.
So
good.
Is that what you're talking about?
It's all about Minecraft. Yeah. It's all about Minecraft. Okay. This entire film's set in Minecraft. It's quite interesting for 1971.
And I've also got the use of the word spigot over time, and it's had a pretty sharp drop from the 1950s. So it's good to see that you're.
How sad.
It's good to see that you're
alive.
You're keeping the term alive.
Spigot's a good word. It's got a nice rhythm to it. It should stay.
It does. Interestingly, it doesn't have much of a spike from when Minecraft came out. I guess this is about books, isn't it? The Google thing. Yeah, it is. Okay, that makes sense. It's the use in books. Anyway.
Yeah.
Don't let me interrupt you.
So they sort of they sort of team up with the Aborigine boy, or at least they all wander around as a group, and he's able to secure food for them, show them safe places to sleep and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Eventually, they're obviously sort of struggling with how they're going to communicate to him that they want him to show them where a town is, because they don't know if he even has that knowledge. The girl suspects that he's the first white people they've ever seen, although we're never shown if that's true or not.
Well, he does see a white woman later on, doesn't he?
Yes, and he doesn't really treat it as anything that special,
which
would lead me to suspect that she's wrong.
Yeah.
But they're able to sort of. There's a bit where they're painting, and I think during that she's able to communicate that she's able to draw a sort of house in a sort of 5-year-old sort of way.
Yeah, they draw a sort of, I guess, a Western house or a traditional, not traditional, opposite traditional, modern house.
I guess it's traditional for us.
Yeah,
modern house.
Which he recognises.
Yeah, so he sort of comes along with them and takes them to a house, to sort of abandoned farmhouse, at sort of the end of their journey. It's sort of their relationship, as it were. Well, I suppose sort of the lack of their relationship really develops over the course of their journey in a way that I guess we can come back to later, because it's a bit hard to describe in terms of plot. But they eventually get to the farmhouse, and there's a road nearby, which he doesn't indicate to the girl at all, but he does show the boy, and then he sort of tries to. The girl's not really sure what to think about him at this point because she doesn't understand his actions, but he does a traditional dance outside of the house at night. Yeah, and it's clear that it's really disturbing the girl, but it's not 100% clear what he's trying to communicate.
Well, I think it's a love dance, isn't it?
Yeah, well, that's the common interpretation. But obviously, I'm just saying that the girl doesn't interpret it that way.
No, she finds it quite threatening. Of course, before he does that, he sees the buffalo being killed.
Yes, by a hunter.
Yeah, so he's out hunting traditionally with a spear, and he's putting a lot of effort and stuff into hunting a single buffalo, and then these guys turn up in a truck and shoot about 5 buffalo and then just drive away, and that kind of makes him not happy chappy, which then
disturbs him a bit.
Presumably leads to the trance state that he ends up in, and the flirtatious dance.
Yeah, so yeah, it's an amazing dance, but the girl's clearly very threatened by it.
Yeah.
I think it's made quite clear that she thinks she's in danger of being raped by him.
Yes, because she's undressed at this point.
Yeah, but they wake up in the morning. was clearly intending to like stay awake the entire night, but she fell asleep anyway.
Yeah.
And then they find that the Aborigine boy has hung himself in a tree.
Yeah.
And there's not really much they can do about that. So they walk off down the road, and they eventually get back to a town, but they aren't welcome there because they have no money and they're dirty, and it's a bit, it's a harsh return to what they know, because isn't capitalism really the wilderness if you think about it? And then we sort of get to flash forward, as it were, to a few years now, but in the future, where the girl has clearly become a suburban housewife, and is clearly caught within that system, that mundanity, and is sort of thinking about her halcyon days in the Australian outback and the life she could have lived as a free spirit.
Do you think that the thing that she thinks in her head, do you think that's a memory or a dream?
I would say a dream.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no reason that it couldn't be a memory, but I don't think...
Well, the argument is that she never actually really engages with the Aboriginal boy.
Yeah, I think that's fair, and I don't think she would have been comfortable being naked around him.
No, she's kind of got this like idealized memory of him. Just to clarify, the memory is like they go skinny dipping, basically.
Yeah. The end of the film is that she, her brother, and the Aborigine guy all go skinny dipping together, and they're all happy.
But yeah, I think that's a sort of false memory.
So, yeah, given that you've touched on it and it's sort of the heart of the film, shall we just discuss the relationship between the main girl and the Aborigine boy?
Sure.
Get into the weeds, as it were.
Let's do
So
it.
I think... so the girl, as English and middle class, is quite racist. I think is the first thing that we sort of understand in her relationship with him. She infantilizes him quite a lot. There's a bit where her little brother's playing with toys, and she sort of suggests that maybe he'd like them. And she refuses to sort of try and understand from his perspective how it might be easier to communicate with him. Like in the early scene where she's just speaking in English slower and slower and not trying any other method. She's very unwilling to, not in a hostile way, but just in a sort of lack of imagination way, to empathise with him.
Yeah. Definitely.
But there's also... Yeah. There's also quite a strong sexual element to the film. I would say perhaps to its detriment, but I don't know. I watched the director's cut. I'm assuming you would have as well. But
I don't know.
It's the one with a 5-minute nude scene, which is quite a lot. She's like swimming in a cave lake and she's doing flips and stuff.
Oh yeah, no, I think that is
There's a lot of angles. I don't know. It's quite a good scene.
Yeah, well, he's out.
I heard it was banned.
He's out finding food, right? Yeah. And then they go swimming.
Yeah. She's alone. But yeah, apparently that scene was banned from the original release, and I wasn't surprised.
Really?
Yeah. But so she's clearly quite preoccupied with his nudity, if nothing else. And I think it would be fair to say that there's some attraction, maybe, or at least that would be my interpretation. But at the very least, she's definitely very, very aware of him that way. Possibly.
Yes.
As a threat, but also, as something you might want. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's. I don't think she's necessarily like attracted to him, but I think there's an interest there. Just.
I mean, she's definitely not attracted to him emotionally.
Exactly. There's a sort of physical interest, which I guess is an age thing. In many ways.
Well, I suppose because both she and the boy are older teenagers. So it's the inevitable thing. I don't have a better time to bring it up, but there's a tree where they climb at the middle of it, and it's presented as a sexy tree in one scene, and it's very strange to me, but I'm impressed that they were able to do that.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that bit. That's pretty funny.
Yeah.
I
didn't know you could the tree's sort of suggesting the body of a woman, as it were, in a way that I thought was quite surprisingly well done and inventive. It was interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then we're not really. I would say a weakness of the film is that we're not really privy. Or is it a weakness or it's the point? I suppose it's the point, but we're not really privy to the Aborigine boy's perspective. He's always another to us, if you know what I mean.
That's true.
So it's a little hard to figure out what he's thinking at any time, but it's clear, at least by the end, that he loves the girl, even if we don't really understand why, beyond the not super great explanation that she's the first white woman he's ever seen. But I don't think that could be it. But yeah.
Well, you don't think that's why he's interested? I think it's more just they're both at a sort of sexual awakening age.
Yeah, I think that's a better way of thinking of it.
Because obviously, if he's on a walkabout and he's sort of alone, then it
well, I think from his perspective, he's been alone for presumably a period of several months.
Yeah.
And he's now sort of met these two people who are able to travel with him, and he's sort of got someone to protect, as it were. Like, I don't know for you, but I don't say interpretation. Well, maybe interpretation, but my assumption at the end of the scene when he showed them the empty farmhouse is that like his proposal is that they could all live together there. If you know what I mean?
Yeah, I can
sort
see
of
that.
compromise thing.
Yeah. I can
but I don't know.
Definitely see that as a reading of it.
Thank you. I love to produce valid reading.
Yeah,
I love to have someone look at what I'm writing and say, yeah, I guess that
kind of could make sense.
Yeah, I guess. There's no wrong answers in art.
That's true. Yeah, I mean, I guess it's the if he's on the sort of the walkabout and he's trying to find a future or whatever, and then they are presented to him. Kind of makes sense.
But yeah, I would say that even with that though, his suicide at the end is very sudden and shocking.
Yes,
I wasn't expecting it.
So something interesting. I'm just looking now at my notes from the reading that I had to do or did. Apparently, suicide was basically just not a thing in Australia until the colonisers arrived, and now it's a huge problem in Aboriginal communities.
Well, I'm not to draw false comparisons, but it's also a very big problem in Canadian Indigenous communities.
There you go. Yeah, so that's pretty interesting. Just talking about the suicide. Yeah. It's interesting, isn't it?
Well, I suppose it's once you're sort of trapped within a system that's not willing to really show you any sort of personhood, it's understandable, I suppose, that you'd feel trapped.
Yeah.
And I suppose that's what happens in the micro here, because I don't think she ever really does regard him as a person, and that's sort of the issue, as it were.
Yeah, I think so. Because I mean, the little boy definitely does, but she doesn't. So there's
a little boys. So
you go. Okay.
You go.
Okay, I will. Yeah, there's a thing where the little boy is kind of supposed to be emblematic of like the future of Australia, and kind of like a move away from the clash between cultures and a move towards, like, he sort of represents the hope of the future generations living together. Okay. Which I guess, I mean, I don't know much about the Aboriginals, but I think it's...
I don't think the situation's gotten better.
I don't know if it's... Yeah, I guess it's probably not much.
I think, for me at least, it was sort of like, just because he's a child and he hasn't really had time to absorb...
yeah, but I think that's the point, is that the future generations have less, if they don't have so much of the history. Like, apparently there was a big difference between the novel this is based on and the film, just because they were made, I don't know, 20 years apart or something. And
well, I know in the novel it's like Americans in a plane crash are the main characters.
Oh, right, okay.
Rather than
I didn't know that. Thing. But yeah, it's like just the civil rights progress in the intervening period was big enough to make the representation very different. So actually, it was only 10 years apart, really. The novel came out in 1959, so in 12 years, the sort of view had changed. So that's interesting.
Unless there's any sort of 10-year period that's going to make a difference, it'd be the 60s, wouldn't it?
That's true. Very true.
But yeah. Yeah, what did you think of the little boy as a character? I quite liked him. I thought he's seemed very much like that sort of stage of child where there's no sort of filter, and they just always say exactly what they're thinking. Yeah. And they also haven't really learnt the value of not being selfish yet. It seemed very true to life in that way. I
think so. The little boy was played by the director's son.
Yeah.
There's another fun fact for you. I thought the boy was good. I mean, he's a good bridge between the girl and the boy, and between the cultures and stuff. And he sees it obviously as a big adventure rather than.
Well, I think particularly a lot of the first half of the film, he's just very fed up with what's going on. But I think he doesn't really share the girl's eagerness to get back to civilization once the Aborigine boy shows up.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
Once he's safe and well fed, I think.
Yeah.
Which, sensible.
Yes.
I suppose the other main.
Okay, go on.
The other main character of the film is the outback itself, which is always shown with sort of. The film really likes to have these sort of like intersperse these cuts to animals of some sort to give an impression of the outback. Usually quite hostile, so it's usually like a lizard or a snake eating something, or bugs on a rotting corpse. Yeah, but then at the moments where it's kinder, it'll show like birds and stuff.
It sort of moves. There's a move from the when they first set off, and there's the water and stuff. They're surrounded by life, but then there's a lot of skeletons and dead animals and stuff. Yeah. The closer to death they sort of become.
Yeah, it's a very cool film in that way.
It is.
I really like it in terms of creating a sense of place, because I think it's probably obvious from how long we spent doing the plot summary that most of the film isn't really about stuff happening per se. It's just about them sort of existing in the outback
and the representation.
Sort of, yeah.
So there's an interesting reading by.
I always like to hit these.
Barber. So they say that the sort of cinematography is as if they're being watched by the spirits of the outback.
Interesting.
Because the Walkabout is supposed to be this very sort of spiritual connection to the land. The land is full of spirits thing, and there's all these sort of very distant shots and stuff, and shots in the sky and that kind of thing. So there you go. There's a bit of analysis.
Well, I don't really have the knowledge to like go that specific, but I think it's fair to say, even as a sort of layman, that it's a very spiritual film.
Yeah.
Certainly is very much about connection to the land, and how the land and the people within it are connected, as it were. And there's a lot of like people having sort of not visions per se, but there's a lot of cuts to what they're thinking about and stuff like that. So it's very connected to people's thought processes in a way, but like. We never really understand exactly what any character in this film is thinking at any time, with the possible exception of the little boy, because he'll just tell us. But like both, definitely the Aborigine boy, but also I would say the girl are to some extent ciphers, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
We're sort of left very much to guess what they're thinking about stuff through their actions, because they just don't really articulate. The Aborigine boy can't, obviously, but the girl just doesn't really, because she doesn't really have anyone to talk to about anything she's thinking, because she. It's established very early on that her strategy towards her little brother is to lie to him, not maliciously, but just like deny that anything's going wrong, if you know what I mean. Yeah. So she insists that her father's fine and stuff, and that's sort of the extent of their relationship, is just her either telling the little boy what to do or that everything's supposed to be okay.
Because he knows that his dad's dead, doesn't he?
Particularly at the end. At the end, he says specifically that he saw him shoot himself.
Yeah.
But yeah, so beyond that, she doesn't really get to say very much throughout the film, and we're sort of left to try and interpret her thought process by the actions. We're very much at arm's length, which is always a good way to do a film. It's very engaging.
Yes, quite.
Quite.
Right.
Any other mind-blowing takes from your notes?
I don't think so. I mean, there's a lot about how the Aboriginal is a much more sort of fully fleshed out character than he is in the book, which again is just, you know, progression. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, I think you could. I was wondering if maybe you could say this was sort of a noble savage film, if you know what I mean.
No, I don't think so. I think it's much more than that.
Well, I think, the thing is, the film's always at the sort of obstacle that the Aborigine, it doesn't have a way to communicate with either us or them.
Yeah.
But I suppose we are painted a fairly, not complete, but we're given an inner life, even if it's not fully painted out, which I guess is the most important thing.
No, I think he's a lot more than a noble savage. He's definitely one of the characters. Once he's introduced, I mean, there's definitely still, you know, it's not like it's not a film about him, but I mean, I've not read the book, but from what I have read about the book, it is the noble savage, and you know, him coming in and rescuing them and sort of being this wild person, whereas in this one he's definitely, you know, you can see his emotions and what he's thinking and stuff.
The perspective the perspective of the film, I think, just thinking about it, it's like it's definitely from a white person's perspective, but it is a white person who's willing to empathize, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, exactly.
Although I don't know the extent to which preconceived notions are affecting that analysis.
Yeah. Cool. Well, I think that's all my.
I heard a spicy take when I was looking around.
Yeah.
Which is that this is a return to Eden story.
Oh yeah, I saw that.
Where the girl and the boy are sort of being put back into the Garden of Eden as in the outback.
Yeah.
And then that's why there's a lot of snakes in the film. And then sort of they're cast out again, as it were, for the sin of failing to communicate. But then, like, I think the thing with that, I would say the part of that interpretation that holds strongest for me is the ending scene, which I think is very Eden-y, if you know what I mean. Her memory / vision, as it were, at the end.
I guess she. I don't know. She kind of feels like she's been to Eden. Maybe it has. Overall, it has the same effect as a sort of Eden thing, but I wouldn't say throughout the film necessarily you get that.
It's also a nice explanation for the film's obsession with nudity.
Yeah, that's true.
So I don't know.
There's a lot of nudity in it.
Yeah. So, what would you say the film is about if you had to be reductionist?
I don't know. I guess the relation to the relationship between Aboriginals and whites, and the sort of spiritual the spiritual nature of the outback and how to sort of become connected to that. I think
very nice.
I think
was going to say
the impression I get is the book is more of a sort of survival. Sorry, I don't know. I've not read the book, but that's the impression I get. Is it's more of a sort of survival one, whereas this is more in tune with the Aboriginal life. Obviously, it's still made by a white person, and presumably, the crew was all white, and most of the cast, apart from the Aboriginal, are white. But I do think it does have a sort of a side that's sensitive to that. Do you think it
displays a preference for the outback or the built-up Australia?
Definitely the outback, I would say.
You think so?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Cool. I would say, to give the textbook answer, that it's a story about communication,
right?
And how people from different backgrounds can't, because they're unwilling to interact. That creates discord, I suppose. Because I think that's sort of the main tragedy, is that if either the girl or the Aboriginal boy have been able to communicate.
Yeah,
particularly in the girl's case, I feel like I'm ragging on her a lot, which isn't really fair, because obviously she's a character who's in a very bad situation and is mostly just making very practical choices so that she can survive.
I mean, I think the message is that what she's had ingrained into her is, you know, like, we're English, we need help. why can you not speak English, stuff like that. Like that. I don't think that's her character. I think that's just her culture, what's been ingrained in her. And I think the boy has not had enough time to become fully ingrained in that culture.
I think obviously also like the main fear that's motivating her, particularly in the latter half, is that she's scared that like she's going to be raped. And like it feels a little, callous to say like you just get over that. It's obviously not going to happen. You're just being paranoid. Moron.
But I think that's the culture. That's the culture again.
Well, it's obviously based on like the sort of racist idea of like the oversexed foreigner. But then also, but at the same time, she is also alone with one man in the middle of nowhere and completely unsafe. So it's not entirely unreasonable, as it were.
True.
But given both, because the way the Aborigine boy tries to communicate his intentions to her is also in a way that, like, not to be disrespectful, but he should know she wouldn't be able to understand, if you know what I mean. With the courtship dance, he sort of defaults to what he knows, the same way she does.
I guess so. I guess I guess he's got no context of why she would or wouldn't know that.
Well, that's true, right? But he sort of... I mean, I'm not saying, like, this is blameworthy, as it were. It's just, like... It's not... Both she and her sort of fall back on what they've been taught to do without considering... trying to find some sort of intercultural way of moving forward.
Interesting. Interesting take.
Thank you. That's what I try to provide.
The built-up area essentially leads two people to suicide if you look at it one way, because the dad, presumably, I mean, they don't say why the dad commits suicide, but presumably it's because he hates his job and he hates his life. And then of course the Aboriginal boy sees the hunters and then is rejected by the girl, which is all the result of that sort of culture of the built-up areas, as you said. So
and obviously on their return to that town, they're greeted very harshly by someone who just wants them to get off their property.
Which is fair enough, get off my land.
Wow. In a good world, an Aborigine world with no concept of private property, that wouldn't have happened. I don't know if Australian Aborigines don't have a concept of private property.
Well, it's all about the country and the outback and stuff. Anyway, should we move on to ratings, or have you got more to...
Oh, yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. I just want to say that before we move on to ratings, that I thought it was really good. I hadn't realised it was the same director as Performance
Well,
before,
that sounds like a rating, Jamie.
Nah, but now that I know that, it makes sense to me, and I'm glad to see that he's progressed as an artist.
Actually, that's interesting. How do you notice any similarities between Performance and...
I think Performance was obviously very willing to delve into character psychology. Very much. I think it was also about the interaction between two worlds, because it's that same theme again. I can tie anything into that one theme, Duncan.
What
you'll
theme?
Be astonished. Like the idea of like two worlds that can't interact, that I keep saying is very prevalent.
That's true.
Starting with getting straight. But certainly, I hadn't thought about this until you brought it up. But I guess Performance, in that case, it's sort of... Because it's also about a sort of strict... urban world, but then contrasted with one that's sort of about freedom and free love, obviously, in Performance's context. But you're sort of dealing with what you know as a society that's very not poisonous, but oppressive to you, but it's something you're familiar with. And this is contrasted with the sort of scary new quote unquote society that you're not familiar with, but the main character is being exposed to for the first time, and they're sort of forced to make a choice between the two, and in the end they choose to go back to what they know, and that leads to the death of the sort of ambassador for that new way of life.
Wow.
So there you go. Actually they're basically the same.
Basically the same film.
But that's a little quick analysis of the similarities. I don't know if there's anything else you follow. This one doesn't have a dance number in it, and Performance did, and that's why that's a little bit of a shame.
I mean, the Aboriginal dance at the end, and there's didgeridoos and stuff. So there are some similar, certainly in terms of sort of stylistically. The Aboriginal obviously is in some kind of trance, and there's the cinematography is quite similar to the bit when they're all shroomed up and stuff. So there's definitely you can tell similarities, but they're also different in a lot of ways, which I guess is a show of a good director. that he doesn't get.
Yeah, he's got a core vision, but he's willing.
Yeah.
He's got building it and stuff like that.
Right,
Cool.
what are you going to rate it?
I would rate this a strong. Actually, I'm wondering now.
I'm waiting for you to do it.
I'm going to go for I'm going to go for a buy it right now.
Oh, you're in for a buy it? Holy shit! Okay.
I'm not going to quite go up to Criterion yet, but I might.
Really?
I hold on to the right to change my rating.
You really like this? I was going to say stream it.
I really liked it. Oh wow!
Because I like it, but I don't know if it's. I guess well. No, maybe I would put it. No, I'm gonna say stream it to be different.
Fair.
You. But it's something close to a buy now that I think about it. I guess I've had the mumps. Wait, let me see when I watch this. Week 8.
Yeah.
18th of March. I watched this, so I've had 2 months. 2 months distance from it to take it in. So yeah, I'm gonna rate stream it. Fuck it.
All right. Well, yeah. I don't know. I like films that are a vibe, as it were.
Yeah.
This is very strongly within that.
That's true.
That canon is very much about evoking a feeling rather than necessarily about the story.
Yeah.
But the story it does have is good. It's a bit, I don't know, a bit lib in a way, but I think that's fine.
Cool.
Yeah, I really enjoyed myself a lot more than I thought I would. So yeah,
good.
Fair kudos. Yeah. Do you want to? Shall I reveal now what we're going to do next week?
If you know,
I do.
Is it the Muppets film? We had a lot of options for this week, actually.
We did. We had 4 options. Johnny Get Your Gun, the Muppets Do Princess and the Frog, and then one other one which was also about Australia, if I remember correctly.
We can. I mean, we can always go back and watch those if we have a.
Yeah, we've missed obviously quite a lot of stuff over the last month and a half.
Yes,
we'll
exactly.
Try and get back and do a lot of it.
I was keen to do a quadrisode this week, but James said no. So
well, yeah, I only had a day, so it would have been hard. Anyway, the film we are doing next week, or at least one of the films we are doing next week, is The Panic in Needle Park, which is the film about the lives of heroin addicts, and it stars Al Pacino and Kitty Wynn. So there you go. And it was rejected for rating, which is cool and interesting.
Oh, that is cool. Okay, that sounds interesting. Needle Park. Bobby is a heroin addict. Okay, right. That sounds good.
Cool.
What? I guess we should talk about what we've been up to now.
Yeah, I have simultaneously been up to a lot and up to not very much, so I don't really have a lot to say.
When was our last episode?
A month and a half. Yeah, I've mostly just been busy with uni work. It was horrible. I don't want to do it again.
You are doing it?
But it's over with now. Well, I have to do another year, but it shouldn't be as hard.
I pressed play on one of our episodes and it's screaming into my ears. Yeah, our last one 28th of February, and then before that it was the 7th of February.
Yeah.
Jeez, so we've missed out on a lot, but we're going to be back with vengeance. So you've been doing uni work?
Yeah,
me too.
I haven't been slacking. So yeah, not a massive amount to say. I watched all of Mobile Suit Gundam. I think I'd started watching that in a previous episode.
Right.
I finished it a while back. It's a very good show. I liked it a lot, even though it's very old.
I watched a show called Superstore.
Oh yeah? Oh, that's supposed to be really good.
Yeah, it is good. It's kind of like well, it's not like The Office, but it's that kind of style. Although, well, actually, it's not a mockumentary, so I guess it's not that much.
It's a workplace comedy.
Yeah, it's a workplace
with a
comedy.
grounded tone.
So it's that kind of thing. It's entertaining. Yeah, it's a lot of
good.
it's very sort of American, as would be expected. But yeah, it's an entertaining film. It's got some good plot lines going through it. Not film, TV show. So I watched that. Let me go on Steam and see what games have been.
I always get because I was watching a few episodes of Parks and Rec when I couldn't sleep the other night. I always get very it's always very weird with these workplace comedies, particularly in the US ones, where like it's very clear that the characters have no social life outside of work, and it's just sort of a bit sad in that way. And like they keep having to find reasons to have major life events evolve around their job. I don't know.
Yeah.
I was watching the episode where Ben and Leslie get married, but they get married at the office. It's just like that's actually just a really sad story if you think about it.
Is that what happens? You get a job and then you just live there? I guess it depends what job you get.
Well, I guess
that's definitely not what happens.
You're American. You only get like 2 weeks vacation a year.
Yeah.
So. Did you know that the USA is the only country in the developed world that doesn't have compulsory paid holiday?
No, I didn't know that. That's interesting.
Yeah. It's wild.
So,
it's wacky.
Games. I've not played many games. This is since February.
Yeah. Alright, well, I've been making a list throughout the year of the games I've played. So,
I've played
to completion.
like 15 different games since February or something like that. Which I guess is quite a lot, but it's definitely not. Actually, that is quite a lot. Anyway, right. A game called Dorf Romantik.
Oh yeah, I've heard loads of really good things about that, except it's early access, so I want to wait. But.
Oh no, it's fun. It's I played a lot. I played 12 hours of it, and I'm sort of done with it for now. But they are releasing an update at some point, so I'll sort of get back into it. It's a tile. Is it called like a tile game? So you get given tiles that you have to put together, and it's like a city builder or a medieval city builder. But you get given the
like
tiles and you
Carcassonne.
have to link them.
In
it's
a way.
Fun. It's a fun little game. The other game I've been playing is Ape Out.
Oh yeah,
which is really fun. It's like Hotline Miami, but you're an ape.
Yeah.
And it's got this jazz soundtrack that like reacts to what you do.
Diegetic soundtrack.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like very slow like drum beats, and then when you hit someone, like the cymbals start going, and it's really good.
Nice.
It's like Hotline Miami, but
did you think
it's more procedurally? I think it's more procedurally generated, from what I can tell.
Yeah. The sort of main criticism of that game that I recall, like there were some people who really liked all of it, but some people were saying that past the first level it got a bit irritating. Do you think that's true, or?
I'm onto like the 4th disc, so.
Yeah, so you're probably
in
a position. I think it was the rocket launchers a lot of people didn't like.
Oh, I don't think I've got to the rocket launchers yet. So, but I'm well into the game, so I don't know when they come.
Okay.
Oh no, maybe they mean there's like grenades that you can throw, the people throw. So maybe that's what they mean. They are quite annoying because they blow up. But I mean it's hard at some points, but you just got to get through it. You got to fight.
Well, I suppose it's sort of the Devolver Digital sort of specialty, as it were. It's a very violent game where you have to kill a bunch of enemies and it's quite hard. Yeah. But like in a very sort of short space.
Okay, so they've got I think the sale finished on Devolver Digital Games, didn't it?
I think they go on sale very often. I don't think anyone would be missing out for a long time.
No, I don't think so. So yeah, that's a good one. And I've not really played many other new ones. I got Total War Rome remastered, but I kind of regret getting it because it's very much like a nostalgia thing for people that played a lot of the first one. And I did play a fair amount of the first one, but like when I was really young and I didn't really play it properly, so I kind of feel like I'd be better just playing one of the more recent ones with all the features in it. But I'll give it another go and see how. I think I'm still able to refund it, so I'm kind of tempted to do that, but I don't know.
In terms of stuff I've played, very little. I've been playing Disco Elysium, but I haven't finished that yet, and I'll have very big thoughts when I have, because that game's fantastic. Right. But in terms of stuff I did finish, I played Super Mario 64. Nice. I played it on the DS before, but I wanted to play the original, so I bought it on Switch, and then it turns out that the speedrunning glitch that I wanted to try isn't available in that one. You can't do the backwards long jump up the stairs, and that upset me. Right. And then the Super Mario Sunshine, which is another 3D Mario game that was for the GameCube, I thought that game was quite bad, actually. I was surprised. It didn't reach the usual standards of quality one would expect, but I still finished it because I'm awful. So yeah, those are the two that I played over the last 2.5 months.
Cool. Well, that's good. Joe, I'm just looking on Steam now. The Escapist 2 is on sale. We need to give that another try.
Yeah.
You don't sound very keen for that.
No, I am keen to give it a try. It's just I never really figured out what we were doing last time.
Yeah,
so
I kind of took over last time, didn't I? But we'll get it. Maybe we should do a Golden Talkies Let's Play.
We can just reinvent ourselves.
Yeah. No. Unless. Keep your eyes peeled, guys. You never know. Yeah. You never know.
The Patreon rewards has finally been figured out.
Oh, that would be good. We just do Let's Plays as Patreon rewards. What else have I've not really. I watched Now You See Me and Now You See Me 2 last night.
Which ones did you like more?
Maybe 2. I don't know. They were pretty mediocre. I'd rate them. I'd probably rate them both a stream. Normally, I really like films with twists, but the twists were just a bit flat.
Well, they're both heist films, right? I suppose so they're all.
Yeah, but no. I mean, normally I really like a heist film with a twist because it kind of. But I don't know. They weren't bad, but they were just kind of alright. And the twists were, whatever. I won't spoil them here because I can't even remember them, even though I watched it last night. But yeah, I watched them last night.
Cool.
I guess I could talk about every film I've seen in the last few months, but
I'm gonna give you a plea on behalf of our listeners and say don't do that.
Yeah, no, I'm not going to. Let me think for a second if there was anything that really stood out. I don't think so.
I don't think I've watched any films for a while. Oh, I watched My Dinner with Andre like 2 months ago. That was really good.
Nice. I watched some of the Oscar ones. Oh, The Sound of Metal is quite good.
What out of what was available that you saw, what would have been your Oscar pick?
Let me look up Oscar Best Picture. Out of the ones I've seen, I actually have only seen 2 of them.
Okay, well, the 2 you've seen.
No, I've seen 3 now because I watched one since the Oscars as well. So I've seen Minari, Sound of Metal, and The Trial of the Chicago 7. Out of those ones for Best Picture, probably Sound of Metal, maybe. I really liked Trial of Chicago 7 as well, and Minari was quite good, but it definitely wasn't great. And the one I really want to see is The Father, because that's not even out yet probably, but I really want to see that one.
That looked quite depressing.
Yeah, it looks really depressing, but I'm sure. I mean, it just looks phenomenal with the cast that it's got and stuff. So.
Very fair.
Yes.
Very fair.
Yeah. That's me.
Cool. Sounds like a productive time.
Sounds like a productive time. Should we get this up to an hour? Do you reckon we can do 2.5 minutes?
Well, just to bullshit for a while. Okay.
We could do some scat. Skibbity bap bap.
Skibbity bap. Skibbity. It's actually a lot harder than you think it would be, isn't it?
Is it? Nah, I'm good at that. Skip bap bap. Beep bap bap boo. I'm not. I know what you mean. It is, isn't it?
That's
quite good.
Bap.
Right, this is descended into.
Well, you know what? There's only one possible thing. I've been banned from talking about it on the podcast before, but because we're in our time of need, here's time for my anime recommendations.
Oh god.
Okay, let's go. So this season is absolutely stacked. This is obviously spring 2021 season. My personal recommendation would be Odd Taxi, which is a fantastic show about a taxi driver. That's a sort of love letter to 70s and 80s culture, but in a way that I thought was quite unusual, because I think shows like that usually are very dismissive of the youth and very glorifying of sort of the boomer way of doing things. But it's, despite having a sort of reverence for that culture, I think the show is very empathetic and is very willing to grant interiority to its younger characters and acknowledge that the world is changing and maybe it's not always good, but that the people's experiences are still valid.
So I know what I did. I've just remembered. So I don't know if I mentioned it. I was reading American Psycho. Oh
yeah.
But I was probably reading it when we last did it. So I finished reading it and I watched the film again, and I have to say the book is a lot better.
Oh wow!
Which is a pretty hot take. But it's
that is a scorching hot take. That's spicy.
I mean, the film's quite short. Always, I mean, whenever you read a book and then watch the film's always going to be considerably shorter just because of the nature of different scenes and stuff. But yeah, the book just has so much more detail. But the film is a very faithful adaptation. If you've read the book, then watching the film, you kind of you kind of see what's coming and stuff. So yeah, that's my hot take.
What's your hot take on It's Hip to Be Square?
Well, I really think that they came into their own both artistically and commercially when they released their second album. Of course, the landmark track is Hip to Be Square. A song that's so catchy that most people probably don't listen to the lyrics, but they should, because aside from being commentary on something, it's also a commentary on the band something. And we've hit an hour, so I think that's pretty good.
If only you'd elongated it longer, people wouldn't have realised that you'd forgotten the rest of the monologue. How sad.
I know. I did find myself like quoting when I was watching the film. I was like, because I'd read the book, I was like quoting, because a lot of the things are the same. So like he would say something, and I'd be like, "Oh, I remember that," and then I'd say it with him. Well, he's my idol.
Of course. I mean, you're going to model your life after him, right? Now.
Yeah, exactly.
You've been shown how to succeed.
Him and what's the main guy in Taxi Driver called?
Travis Bickle.
Yeah, him and Travis Bickle.
And of course the Joker and Rick Sanchez.
And the Joker, yeah.
And Heisenberg.
To be fair, I do find American Psycho very sad, because he just wants to fit in.
Yeah.
And I think really, Jamie, everyone else are the psychopaths. And that's my hot take.
That's a center of the sun scalding hot take.
Here's a take, right? That I have to confess is not my take, but I read online, which I think is very interesting. So in the book, the only people that Patrick talks about music to in the book is the reader, right?
Yeah.
So that implies that he has a genuine interest in music, and it's like the one thing that you could connect people with. And then when the investigator asked him about music, he's unable to answer it, which just shows like how hard it is to make a human connection. But in the film, he talks about music to people that he's about to kill. So there's still like an element of he only talks about it when he knows that they're going to die. But I just think it's I think it's done better in the book, because you really, obviously it'd be very hard to like have an internal monologue in the film talking about music. But I think that's interesting, because that's obviously the thing that he could connect people with, but then he's unable.
But yeah, I think it's also, I don't know if his takes are the same in the book, but it's obviously quite interesting that Patrick Bateman's music takes are all incredibly like unusually mainstream, if you know what I mean.
Well, that's true. That's the kind of counter to the theory, is that you know, the music takes that he gives are probably not his own. They sound more like something that he read in a magazine, which kind of undoes the idea that maybe they are his takes, and that's something that he's actually interested in.
This might be weird, but my own impression was that like they were genuinely his opinions, but his opinions were just that bland.
That they were that mainstream. Maybe. Yeah, that's an interesting one. Anyway, much like when we did our episode on Catch-22, I would highly recommend reading American Psycho. It's got there's some hard to read bits in it as well. Some of the murders and rapes are incredibly gruesome and very described in a lot of detail.
Yeah, it's always fun.
But I would definitely recommend that book. So there we go. There's a bit filler for the end of the poddy.
Yeah, very good. Well, now that we've made it to the hour mark, shall we sign off?
Yeah. You ready for the theme tune to take us out?
Yeah.
Should we?